Good morning. Shabbat Shalom. So, like Rabbi Josh said, my name is Darrell Blocker. I'm here today because I'm Jewish. I'm here today because I'm a Zionist. And I'm here today because I spent 25 of my 28 years at the Central Intelligence Agency chasing some of the worst people on this planet as an operative that went after the Bin Ladens and the ISISes and the Hamas people of the world. And since the 7th of October, I've had the honor and privilege to speak at the Ahaveth Hashem Synagogue in Atlanta. I'm a Georgia boy. 5 days after the attack, I have spoken at the Chabad Palisades. I've done two fundraisers on behalf of Stand With Us, two fundraisers on behalf of Friends of the IDF, and two fundraisers on behalf of the Far Azak Kibbutz. I shared some of the press reporting from some of these events with the rabbi, and he asked me to come in and also share with what I consider to be my synagogue, the Mishkan. So I want to talk to you a little bit about the hostage exchange strategy, the US interest in the region, and then what the end game might be. But before that, I just want to share a little bit about the Wikipedia page is about 90% accurate. And I figured that if I started tweaking it and going in and correcting the things that were incorrect, that I'd spend the rest of my life doing nothing but that, so I'd just leave it. But my journey to Judaism ended or began on 21 Elul 5777 when I did a Beit Din and the mikvah at the American Jewish University up off of Mulholland. It's striking that my career at CIA began when I submitted a 1,500-word essay on the original Palestinian uprising in the late 80s. So since Hamas declared itself independent and free from the PLO in December of 1987, I've been tracking that, Sheikhat Yassin and these folks for nearly 35 years. Hamas has never, ever been interested in a two-state solution. Hamas is only interested in completing Hitler's final solution. It is really difficult to deal with someone whose point and entire existence is to destroy an entire people's. They are going to have to change, or they are going to have to be eliminated. When I applied to the agency, I was a young lieutenant in the Air Force. I was an analyst for 4 years before I joined the CIA. And little did I know that 1,500-word essay about the rights of the state of Israel to exist from the British mandate all the way up to the current time in the late 80s would launch a career where I spent most of my life chasing down the people who were responsible for the first World Trade Center attempt, and they came back 8 years later and completed it. The people who attacked our embassies in Africa, in Dar es Salaam, in Nairobi, the folks responsible for the USS Cole bombing. If there was a terrorist activity that happened between 1992 and 2018, and when I retired, I was involved in it. I rose up to be the deputy director of the Counterterrorism Center, which is the US government's preeminent institution for going after the worst of the worst. I was awarded the Distinguished Career Intelligence Medal for my 32 years of service. But at the end of the day, I felt that I could give a little bit back to people who are extremely anguished and upset by what's gone on. And so I'm here because of that. Now, the IDF, so I'm going to touch on the three issues, the hostage exchange first. The IDF and Hamas, this is not the first time that they've exchanged prisoners and hostages. Now, at this level and this scale, of people, particularly on the Israeli side. It's never been done. Um, Everyone's aware of the fact that in 2011, the IDF traded more than 1,000 Palestinians for one Israeli soldier. So hopefully, the folks that remain in custody will also all be coming home. But we have to be realistic. The chances that every single one of those persons is still alive, I think, has always been small and remote. And the families should remain hopeful until there is no more hope. But Hamas have painted themselves into a corner. Hamas has never been the sole focus of the Israeli defense forces. Hezbollah was a higher threat. The civil war in Syria was a higher threat. The Islamic Republic of Iran was a higher threat. And they had divisions politically within Israel that divided the people and forced them in some way to take their eye off the growing threat, which was Hamas. Now, I also work for ABC News and spoke yesterday about I think it was either the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times put out a report that the Israeli intelligence had Hamas plan a year in advance. As disappointing as that is not surprising. We learned after Pearl Harbor that the US government and other institutions were aware of the Japanese plans, they were aware of the target, and yet they were unable to stop it. 9/11, I was around and been chasing bin Laden for about 8 years by that point. We knew that it was imminent. We knew something was about to happen, and yet we didn't have the specificity to figure out that they were going to use planes or how they were going to do it. So the fact that there is reported, and we don't really know whether that report is completely accurate, but Israel has a fantastic intelligence service. It's just that they have to get it right every single time, and Hamas only has to get it right once. And that one time was the worst thing that I've ever seen. And I was on the ground in Burundi in the aftermath of the Hutu Tutsi massacres. I was in Mogadishu after our soldiers were dragged through the streets in Somalia. I was in Pakistan where I saw some incredibly difficult and terrible things. So the 7th of October, when I woke up to probably a half dozen messages from friends that I had met over many years serving in embassies abroad, and my Mossad friends asking for help, asking for Kevlar vest, asking for drones, asking for a lot of different things. So I immediately spun into, let's see how we can help. And then someone asked if I could start speaking to groups. So again, that's why I'm here today. But the Hamas exchange for prisoners, Hamas is at the point now where they're going to have to either admit that they killed many of those people that are remaining, or that they've done things to them that they don't want the world to know about. So Hamas's strategy was short-sighted. And if you remember the Munich Olympic and how long it took Israel to bring those people to justice, I guarantee you that anyone that posted a video, anyone that made a phone call, anyone that Israel can absolutely prove was responsible for any actions on the 7th of October, their clock is ticking down. Not in retribution, but in dishing out exactly what Hamas expects, and it's to exterminate them. Now, this does not extend to the Palestinians, as everyone knows. Hamas is not and does not represent the people of Palestine. They won an election 12 years ago, and I guarantee you that they would probably not win an election today. And if they did, then we got a whole different set of problems that we're going to have to deal with. So the Hamas strategy, of course, is to liberate as many Palestinians in Israeli jails as they can, and Israel's strategy is to bring as many of those in Hamas custody home, dead or alive. Now, with regards to U.S. interest in the region, the CIA partners with our Israeli security services, but we also have relationships with everyone else in the region, the Jordanians, the Lebanese, the Qataris. And I know that there's some concerns that Qatar might be playing both sides of the fence, but they're playing both sides of the fence because that's the role that the West has asked them to play. Initially with dealing with the Taliban, the US government policy is that we do not negotiate with terrorists. The only thing true about that, I guess, if we don't direct contact, we do through intermediaries. We did through intermediaries to get our hostages out of the Tehran, of our embassy in Tehran, and every terrorist group that I can think of. We talk to them through other people, and Qatar has stepped up to do that role. Now, they have been housing and financing the leaders of Hamas. I think they're rethinking some of that. I think Hamas is going to lose their financial benefactors, and they're going to lose the support of people on the ground in Palestine who recognize that this is not the way that they want to go. So I'm hopeful that the US interest with the Qataris, with the Egyptians, with our partners in the region will ultimately help us provide full and whole support for Israel in their response. Now, the end game for each of the combatants right now is total annihilation of the other. Prime Minister Indira Gandhi said you can't shake hands with a closed fist. And for 7 days, Hamas and the IDF decided to unclench their fist and to actually negotiate and free innocent children and primarily women and a few men. The position of Israel has always been a two-state solution from Ben Gurion in 1947 all the way up to October 7th, I would say. They've lived side by side for thousands of years, and there's absolutely no reason why Hamas can't evolve the way that Yasser Arafat did. That's not going to sit well with a lot of people. As an intelligence officer and as intelligence services that has dealt with these folks, even Mossad deals with people that they would rather eliminate, because at some point you cannot kill yourself out of these situations. Hamas is more than physical, it's now an ideology, and ideologies are really difficult to stamp out. The Abraham Accords have held. Now, the Arab world is upset right now, but they're also caught between supporting murderers or supporting people who are willing to sit down at a table and negotiate. So I'm hopeful that there will be continued détente, so to speak, between Israel and some of its Arab neighbors. So in closing, there are dark days ahead, but the US government's support for Israel will not wane, it will not waver, and Israel is not alone. Jews are not alone. And I know when you're looking at the television, and I look at it all day long, it is depressing and it is disturbing that people that we thought might be on our side simply have not stepped up. One of the events that I spoke at was a bridging the divide between the Black and Jewish communities. I'll be speaking at Brandeis University probably in February or March of next year on this same thing. So I'm deeply disappointed in the response from the Black community. I don't speak for the Black community any more than I speak for the Jewish community, but there's right and there's wrong. And if your moral compass is veered towards Hamas, then you have, that's going to be between you and God, because at the end of the day, the wholesale murdering of innocents can never be something that can be accepted. So we should never forget that even out of the ashes of the Shoah, Israel came into existence. So I'm hopeful. I am truly, truly hopeful as an intelligence officer who has been involved with dealing with some of these people since 1993, 92, 93, that there is always, always, always a way out of even the worst of times. So with that, I'm Israel Chai, and thank you.